Leaving Spain behind means transitioning to the next leg of the Wayfarer Expedition, and I was starting in Mardin, Turkey, in the southeast of the country. Mardin is about as far east as you can go in Turkey without a government permit, and I was really looking forward to starting the expedition here. That is, if I could find my hostel. After my last trip through Turkey, I certainly wasn't expecting these winding Middle Eastern alleyways, but here they were.
I have literally just been dropped off at the entrance to this neighborhood because you can't drive through it. I'm as far east as you can go without a government permit. And the call to prayers in the background, it's very surreal.
My name's Jack Rogers. In June of 2023, I decided I'd had it with normal life and set out to travel the world. 2 years later, I'm still going. I've seen some cool things in my time. I've swam the Nile, followed a matador around Spain, dived the world's oceans, and even returned to Iraq after 5 years away. Now I'm off on my next expedition, an 18-month trek through some of the world's most fascinating pilgrimages. My journey will take me to 12 countries as I walk in the shoes of religious pilgrims, ancient traders, and soldiers who blazed these trails centuries ago. This isn't just another trip. Unlike my first journey, I won't be walking the earth aimlessly. This is a chance to walk with purpose, to trace the footsteps of those who move for faith and survival. These routes carry stories, and I intend to find mine among them. I've never attempted anything like this before, but after 2 years of discovering what this world has to offer, I'm ready to take the plunge into some of life's deeper meaning. I'll be tested, physically and mentally, but I know in the end, it will all be worth it as I become a wayfarer.
So it's my first full day in Mardin, and I'm not gonna do much, to be honest with you. It's sending my old career spidey senses through the roof, not because I think anything's gonna happen, just the environment. I need to kind of get reacclimated, but I am gonna explore the old Jewish quarter because part of this leg of the Wayfarer Expedition is to track Islam's history and impact on Turkey, and in the former Roman province of Asia, it was Jewish, then Christian, then Muslim. So that's what I'm gonna go explore today.
It's a little known fact that Mardin actually has an old Jewish quarter. There aren't any Jews here today, and they've long since been gone from the city. Their exodus came gradually over time as they converted to Christians and the Muslims took over and either deported or forced them out. All that took place over centuries though, and if you look closely, you can still see some of the remnants that are left behind. Wandering these streets felt like I was in a video game or a movie. Even though I had traveled the Middle East and Turkey before, I had never been in a city quite like this.
My taxi driver told me yesterday that navigation can be totally unreliable in this city. And after walking these streets, I mean, look at this. After walking these streets, I can definitely see why, because it might think a car can get through somewhere, but it can't. So he's like, let's call the place where you're staying, ask them the best way to get there. Which now makes sense as to why he just kind of dropped me off outside the neighborhood and said, you gotta walk from here. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but all that dust behind me, that's Syria. I'm about 15 miles from the Syrian border. And you can see all the way out to it.
Down the hill on the far south side of town is this old Syriac monastery, which was built in the 300s. Even though the lock was open, the gate was closed, and it looked deserted and like I really shouldn't be there, so I just took some videos and pictures from the outside. That said, this garden of olive trees was clearly attended to, so someone was here.
So in this part of the world, you do have Christian churches, but a lot of them are not, you know, what Americans think of Christians and Protestant Catholic. You have a lot of Orthodox, specifically Syriac Orthodox, which is what I'm about to go see right now as part of Turkey's, or Mardin's old city.
When most people think of Turkey, they think of the flag which has the crescent moon on it, a sign of Islam. But for over 600 years before the founding of Islam, there was Christianity, even in Turkey. While the Romans resisted the full-on adoption of Christianity, By the time they became the Byzantine, it was the religion of the empire. In this part of the world, that meant being Syriac Orthodox, a branch of Christianity that split with the Catholic Church over doctrinal disagreements. To this day, most of the active Christian churches in southeastern Turkey are Syriac Orthodox, with the occasional Protestant. Unfortunately for Christians, the Sayfo after World War I decimated their population. Today, Christians make up less than 0.5% of Turkey's population. This church is called the Kiklar Kilisi, or the Church of the Four Martyrs. Unfortunately for me, pictures and videos weren't allowed inside, and they were enforced by a minder. That didn't bother me at a deep level though. I had experienced this in Europe, and I would learn that this is the case in a lot of Syriac churches. Or at least, a lot of the Syriac churches that were still open. Many, like this one, closed their doors years ago. Sometimes they open for worship, and even more occasionally they open for visitors, but it's just the nature of the way the world goes. This Protestant church, on the other hand, was open, and it was open for visitors, but it was quite small, indicating that Protestantism wasn't widespread. Standing in the small sanctuary, I had to laugh to myself though, because it very much looked and reminded me of my church back home, right down to the red motif. And then there were churches like this one, an old Syriac Catholic church that has been converted into a museum. The sanctuary of the church still opens for worship on Sundays, but the rest of it is a museum you have to pay to get into. The sign on the door is clear though, Sundays are for worship, not tourists. This museum was not cheap to enter, but to get a glimpse of what the city's life was long ago, it was worth it to me. It had halls dedicated to different themes, one on religion, one on food, and even one on weapons. Plus, the view from its terrace was amazing. Even though this part of the church had been converted to a museum, you could still clearly tell that it had once been a religious site. There were telltale clues like these naves in the wall, the architecture, and even the decorative carvings. Unfortunately, that was lost on most people visiting the museum. Again, that's just the way history works. When I arrived in Mardin, I hadn't expected to explore its Christian heritage. I didn't even know it was here. I was glad to find it, as it would provide a great bridge from my time exploring Catholicism in Spain to moving to Islam in Turkey. The transition is lost to time in a lot of other cities and archaeological sites, but here in Mardin, you can literally walk the streets and see it come alive.
Turkey's Christian history is quite literally littered across the country. In fact, I'm walking to a monastery right now, and I'll put the name on the video because I can't pronounce it. That's really far, kind of out on its own. In fact, it's about an hour and a half one way, an hour and a half back, which is, a day of walking, a short day of walking on the Camino. Monasteries like this one across this part of the world down into Iraqi Kurdistan and into Syrian Kurdistan were established by people fleeing from the oppression of various empires, specifically in a lot of their cases the Assyrian Empire, and pilgrims, which we would call them today, but back then they were simply people trying to go profess their faith or worship or study free from persecution, would make walks like this, not just an hour and a half from Mardin, but for days or months or years at a time, to be able to go find the freedom that these monasteries offered. And if you watch my videos of when I was in Iraq in December of 23, there's a couple of monasteries like that are still to this day kind of just isolated out, still practicing, and came under threat from Islamic State when it was invading Iraq. So monasteries like this one's still active as well, are super important to Turkey's religious history because they're far and few between, and when they're gone, or abandoned like some of the churches in Mardin, there's no one left to pick up the torch and keep going. There's nothing left to keep the Christian faith going. And you know, it's on life support in Turkey anyway. So this one's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it as part of my sort of end of the Christian faith in Turkey as far as the expedition is concerned, and then moving into tracking Islam as it came into the former Roman province of Asia, and then the Seljuks, eventually the Ottomans, and now Turkey.
Now, I could have taken a taxi out to this monastery, but I elected to walk mainly because I realized Turkey was going to be expensive if I didn't. In the year and a half it had been since I left, prices had really gone up, especially on food and hostels. But budget travel is budget travel, and I wouldn't be the only one making this long walk. That would be a constant theme over my time in Turkey. This monastery sits on the site of an old pagan temple called the Temple of the Sun, which the Romans converted to a fortress when they ruled the area. When the Romans were finally defeated and left, the Syriac Orthodox priests brought relics of some of their saints to this site to re-establish the monastery. In 793 AD, some major restorations and changes took place by one of the Syriac saints that ran the monastery. That's over 100 years after the establishment of Islam. That just goes to show that for a time, Islam tolerated the presence of Christians in the region. That would not always be the case. This monastery served an important role in the Syriac Orthodox Church for centuries. From the 1200s until 1932, it served as the seat of the Patriarch of the Syriac Orthodox Church. That made it not just a religious center, but a political and administrative hub for all Syriac Orthodox Christians in the region. As a testament to this history, there are at least 52 Syriac patriarchs buried here in the monastery. Even though it no longer serves as the seat of the Patriarch of the Syriac Orthodox Church, it still holds worship services and has administrative offices on site. In fact, there are entire sections of the monastery that are off limits to visitors because of this. This is the monastery's main sanctuary. Notice how there are no pews. That's a simple logistical need. They're all stacked against the back wall so that tourists can come in and take their pictures and videos without disturbing the site. Even though this monastery belongs to the Syriac Orthodox Church now, its Middle Eastern heritage as far as architecture goes is not lost on me. In a lot of ways, I felt like I was at a church in Iraq or an old Bedouin outpost in Morocco. To be honest, I absolutely loved it.
So I've left the monastery behind, and I would planned on walking, but I actually, this young man stopped on his motorbike, and no English, he says, come. I saw him going to Mardin, and I was like, no, come. So he took me about halfway, a long way. It takes a fraction of the time it does walking. And he stopped and said, hey, I don't have a driver's license, although I'd take you further. So no, can I offer you some lira? I really appreciate it, for gas. He's like, no, just thank you. So, in the Muslim world, that is common, especially for foreigners like me. They teach it in the military, but if you're a solo traveler, it's very common to run into people saying, no, come on, sit down, have tea. No problem, I'll take you. In fact, the last 500 meters or so, a guy did pick me up. He's like, come. It's like, no, come. Can I give you lira? No. Because he was going that way anyway. So, this part of the world gets a bad rap. Some of it's deserved, some of it's not. But you cannot say that Muslims do not have some of the most hospitable communities in all the world, because no way would I do that in the United States. God only knows what would happen to you. With the founding of Islam in 610 came the eventual downfall of Christianity in this part of the world. In 640 AD, just 30 years after Muhammad founded Islam, the Rashiduns swept through the region and took control of Mardin, just solidifying its place in the various Muslim caliphates. For a long time, it was a harmonious union between Christians and Muslims. However, when the Seljuks came through, as is the story of most of Turkey, Christianity seriously declined. Christians became the minority in this part of the world. And then come the Ottomans and the Sayfo during and after World War I, which saw the Christian community decimated. This part of the world virtually said goodbye to its Christian population, with only about 5,000 left in this city of 500,000 people.
And on that happy note, I moved on to exploring the city's Muslim heritage. The presence of mosques in Middle Eastern cities is a lot like the presence of Catholic churches, basilicas, cathedrals, and parishes in Europe. There are big main ones that serve as the administrative seat of the religion, but there are a lot of outlying and neighborhood mosques that people go to depending on their preferences. This is one of those mosques. It's simple and serves its purpose, with no fancy adornments or elaborate chandeliers.
It's actually a common misnomer that Muslims pray to the east. In the United States and most of Africa, that is true. However, here in Mardin, we are actually north of Mecca, and Muslims pray towards Mecca. So all of the places where the Imam stands are actually facing to the south when he's leading sermons, because that is the direction of Mecca. Personally, that confused me yesterday when I was visiting some places. I was like, this doesn't face to the east, this is facing south, why is it? And then it dawned on me, oh yeah, because I'm due north of Turkey, due north of Mecca. Of course, there's no need to pray to the east because that prayer doesn't go anywhere.
My next stop was the Latifia Mosque, which is located in the city's old Jewish quarter. This mosque was built in 1371 at the direction of the Artukid sultans that ran the region. The minaret, though, that tall tower, was built in 1845 by an Egyptian, long after the Artukids and the Seljuks had fallen out of power. As the camera pans, you can see a mihrab, or a niche that indicates the direction of prayer. Every mosque has one of these inside its prayer hall, and many have one outside, as some worshippers prefer to do their prayers outside under the sun. For some, that's not even a preference, that's a religious mandate, as the prayers need to go directly to God, not passing through any wall or ceiling. In fact, at the Hassan II Mosque in Casablanca, Morocco, they have a retractable ceiling that takes several minutes to open and even longer to close, so that all the prayers can go directly to the heavens. Almost every city has what's called an ulu kami, or a great or grand mosque. This mosque isn't necessarily the biggest or most ornate, but it serves as the historical or even current administrative and religious hub for Muslims in the region. Part of what gave the ulu kami its status was who was allowed in which mosque to conduct Friday prayers. In a lot of cities' history in Turkey, only the ulu kami could hold Friday prayers. I actually arrived at the ulu kami right as the prayers were starting, so I sat at a bench outside and waited for them to finish. Some mosques have signs asking you to do that, but I've been in Turkey and around the Middle East enough to know it's just good manners.
Now you probably noticed that all three of those mosques look the same, and that's because in the Muslim religion, they do not believe in depictions of scenes from the Quran or from the Bible. At most, you will have scriptures in Arabic writing on the walls. And to them, the art is in geometric shapes. It's actually called Islamic art. In Western world, we call them Mudeh art, they call it Islamic art. And unlike in the Syriac Orthodox, the Catholic Protestant churches, where we have paintings and scenes as a sign of worship, that is actually seen as blasphemous in the Muslim religion. Now there is more to Mardin than just the religious aspect. That's why I'm here in Turkey, but there are some other cultural sites. There are museums, and in fact it is a getaway, kind of a local getaway for Turks, similar to kind of like Branson, Missouri is in the U.S. It's just a nice place to get away, have some good food, enjoy some shopping, and some beautiful views away from normal, everyday, mundane life.
This is the Kasamia Madrasi, located at the southwest corner of Mardin. A madrasi, or madrasa when it's transliterated into English, is an Islamic education institution. They're a lot less like Catholic schools and a lot more like seminary for kids. At a madrasa, students will learn about Islamic law, the Quran, the Hadiths, and other important tenets of the Islamic faith. This one was started during the Archaic period under the Seljuks in the 12 and 1300s. Construction came to a halt due to external factors like the Mongol invasion and the fall of the Seljuk Empire, but it was ultimately finished somewhere between 1457 and 1502. This madrasa served for over 500 years as a religious education institution until 1924, when the reforms to the Turkish Republic began and state-sanctioned and state-sponsored religious institutions became a thing of the past. In modern times, this madrasa serves as a tourist destination, and there are tour buses full of people that show up in groups of 30, 40, even 50 at a time. Something most people don't realize is how advanced Islamic societies were when it came to astral navigation. Some of the earliest discoveries and advancements in astral navigation and our solar system actually came from Islamic societies, because down in Arabia, people needed to move across the desert at night, which is very similar to moving across the ocean. There are no waypoints, no identifying markers, no nothing. So the only way to move around was by the stars. But as I said, there's more to Mardin than these cultural and religious sites. For example, it is a burgeoning tourist destination for Turkish tourists. I talked to people who said they hardly recognize it over the last 10 years, as it's really built up with a lot of restaurants and a lot of shops, and even more people.
Now, me personally, if I'm walking from one end of Mardin to the other, I like to walk one side street up the hill from the main street. It's a lot fewer people, tends to be a lot more shade, and you've got some amazing restaurants.
Mardin's main drag is where most people hang out. It's got restaurants, bazaars, even tea shops, and at night, it transforms. It's hardly recognizable at night as the same city during the day. For the most part, the large tour groups have subsided, the museums have closed, and now you just have people hanging out under the stars. That doesn't mean that the city's not crowded though. It is. Mostly with families or young couples just enjoying their evening. Even though it's crowded at night, it could be much worse than having good food, good company, and good tea underneath the stars. As for me, my evening routine was to take up a position at this tea shop overlooking the south of the city out to Syria, as I enjoyed a good book and the call to prayer.
أشهد أن
So that's it for Mardin. I'm about to walk about 30 minutes that way back to my hostel to get ready to take the bus to Diyarbakir. And to be honest with you, I'm a little nervous about it because of the interaction I had with the police there a few days ago. But c'est la vie in this part of the world. That's just how it goes. If you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell. So you don't miss a single thing coming to you from the adventure across the world. And for more on the adventure, aside from the vlogs, be sure to check out my social media at JRT Voyage on Instagram, Threads, and Snapchat, Jack Rogers Author on Facebook, and of course, JackRogersAuthor.com for more blogs, vlogs, updates, and invitations to join me on this crazy adventure across the world. We'll see you guys on the road.